Hello, I'm here.
Hello, Ala Toledo, and welcome to another live stream from the only source of information that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And I really don't have anything planned. I didn't even want to do this, but I feel like I should at least let everybody know I'm okay because I went to a doctor and they stuck some kind of stick up my nose and tested it and said I had the flu. And I knew something was wrong because my blood pressure was wrong, my blood sugar was wrong, and I had a fever. And so I just checked myself a little while ago. I have no fever. My blood sugar is perfect. My blood pressure is perfect. So I must be okay, even though I don't feel very good.
Well, maybe you can sing us a Christmas carol or something.
Hey, if I do, I'll probably have to hang up because I got very limited resources on my throat before I start sounding like Kermit the Frog. It's supposed to be a laugh.
Well,
Be like, ha ha ha.
yeah, yeah. Don't quit your day job, as I say.
I'm not chewing gum. That would be disrespectful. I'm using cough drops. And yeah, they're full of aspartame because I was using regular cough drops and my sugar was going way up because those things are like, they're just hard candy, that tastes funny. Have we got any visitors yet?
Well, yeah, we got a few people here. We got Synoptic Problem. He's the first person, I guess. Quick on the button today. He says hi, y'all. BMW guy says hello, Henry. Grandma Patty says good evening. Marie's Vegetable Garden says hello. Chester Richardson says hey, everybody. Marshmallow says they were dancing to the short Skype tune. Says hi, y'all.
Yeah, I was too.
A Chain of Hills says so glad to see you. Happy you're doing better. Let's see. D Vincent says hello, Henry and all. Great to see you. Better. Yay, I made it. And let's see, who else do we have? Rebecca Hammond says, glad you're feeling better. So a little bit of light crowd today, but I guess that's understandable being Christmas Eve.
I got
anything going on?
Yeah, there is something going on. I'm like sitting here lonely in my house, nothing to do, and hoping that I would get plenty of emails and stuff to kind of, and Skyping and all that kind of stuff. But people keep emailing me, and I have to ignore them because I don't understand what their emails are. Because excuse me, I'm in like a fog, you know what I mean? And it's just weird. This time of year, it always is like that, but being sick, I guess, makes it worse. But I'm getting a whole lot of emails from people asking some serious questions, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let me get this out of my email box so that way I don't have to worry about it later. But I'm not actually able to do it because I can't even understand the questions, I always wondered, like, why didn't everybody know this stuff? If I know it, why didn't everybody know it? But right now, I don't even know it. So I guess it's understandable.
What about church service? You're not going to even attempt it today? They usually have like
Christmas mass, right?
Candlelight services. Yeah, something special. They do. That's their. I think they save up all year to do that, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. It's like that's their big day. No, Easter's the big day, and Christmas is the pretty big day too. I guess if you go play the numbers, they sell more junk on Christmas than they do on Easter. So, yeah, Christmas is the big day.
Couple more hellos. Suze says, howdy, everyone. Howdy, all. And key to salvation is revelation, says Joyex Noel. That sounds like Latin to me. First question comes from a synoptic problem. He says that Jesus wasn't born on December 25th, but did exist and had a birth. Why not celebrate his birth on December 25th? It's as good a day as any.
Hey, is that like, I think he's tricking me. I think he sent me that question in my email and I couldn't answer it.
Well, I mean, if you have to celebrate it, why not celebrate it on December 25th?
I guess if you're going to celebrate, here's the deal. It's like, that was a big deal when I was a Jehovah's Witness. Jehovah's Witnesses that are like, if you do anything Christmassy, they're going to make an announcement about you at the Kingdom Church. But I mean, Jesus celebrated the Passover, and that's more wicked than Christmas, right? So, I mean, he got executed. He still had a meal, I mean, even though he knew they were going to kill him. Everybody, just in case everybody, this is not my tree, by the way, but my wife made a little video about it. That's my wife's Christmas tree right there in front of me. Because I'm the only person that has a big enough room. I only have one room in the whole house, and it's the only one that has enough space for a Christmas tree. My wife has 12 rooms.
Well, key to salvation, as Revelation says, you need some shaga immunati, my friend. Not sure what that is.
Is that something to do with weed? Weed seems to come up a lot every time I get sick.
Yeah, maybe. Grandma Patty says she's celebrating Home Alone. Yee-hi. So,
Best
I don't know.
way.
People, we kind of missed out going to church. It seems like a lot of the churches in this area closed up early. I seem to remember midnight masses being a thing, but seems like they did away with that.
Hey, you want to shut down and start over again at midnight? That way this could be our church.
Yeah. Actually, I heard somebody today saying that kind of what we do here isn't considered a church because you have to have a pastor, and a pastor has to get paid. And so it has to be all official, otherwise it doesn't count.
I think you pretty much have to cut your hair too, and I'm not hip to that. I was looking at my hair tonight. I was like, wow, look at this. It's so lush and vibrant. I found this in my sock drawer, so now I got another thingamajig to hold my fuzzy hair down.
Actually, key to salvation is Revelation says that thing he mentioned was mushroom tea and not shroom tea. It's good for the immune system.
I didn't know, dude. I sent you that little cartoon of the mushroom soup. One of my
Actually, no, I don't know.
One of my subscribers. I shouldn't even bring it up because I don't know how to share it with people, but it was funny. I don't do any. Look at this is a really weird thing. I try my best not to look at people that have an addiction. I don't care if it's tobacco or alcohol or marijuana or eating, or shopping, gambling, because I've only had a few addictions in my life, and they just I didn't overcome them. I it's like back in the day when I was drinking, I would drink every night. It was very rare, and sometimes just to prove that I didn't have to, I would go a night without drinking. But most nights I'd say, okay, I'm not going to drink tonight. And an hour into it, I'd be like, well, maybe just one. So I guess that's an addiction. And then one of my friends, my subscribers, said that he was going to quit drinking. I said, well, whenever you decide to quit, just let me know and I'll quit. Because I figured he wasn't going to be successful, so I could go back to drinking. But he did. He quit drinking, and then I quit drinking. And I guess 3 days in, I called him. I said, have you had a drink yet? Nope. And since then, I was like, well, you know what? I'm really just kidding. I'm not going to quit drinking. But since then, I haven't been able to drink for whatever reason. Every night, I think, okay, I'm going to go ahead and make myself a drink. And I never do. And I guess about 2 weeks ago, I poured myself just a little glass of whiskey. And I set it here with one ice cube in it. And a little while later, I looked in that ice cube, it melted, and I went and poured it in the sink. I just didn't even want it. So it's not like I overcame an addiction. And so maybe that's the way it is for everybody that gives up something. They don't really just overcome it. Their body just says enough is enough and, okay, move on to something else. And so, because I got friends that, pretty obvious they're addicted to stuff. My friend Frost, he's chain smoked until he died, and he knew it was going to kill him, but every time I saw him, he was smoking a cigarette.
Grandma Patty says her nephew gave her a very strong dark beer, and then she put some of that in her soup. I think she was saying that she was eating some potato soup.
Potato soup with beer in it. I can't drink beer. I'd have to cook it into something. I've never have been able to drink beer.
Couple more hellos. Matt says hello, and Uncle Nestor's here. He says hello, guys, and he's glad you're feeling better. Road Glider says, what are we learning? And the BMW guy talking about the Midnight Mass that I mentioned, he says it's 1 a.m. where he's at, which is
Yeah, he
I
didn't
guess
miss
he's over in
mass.
Hungary.
Yeah, he missed
Yeah.
mass.
Great Bay 1961. Great Bay 1961 says, "Good evening, all." And then Uncle Nestor asks, "What do you think about the $450 million picture of Christ that just sold at Christie's, New York?" I didn't hear about that.
I didn't buy it. I can tell you that. Was it a good one? It must have been a photograph. And get that kind of
Yeah,
cash.
450 million.
Yeah, 2,000.
They got it laying around, I guess. Let's see.
Yeah, here's the thing. I never really have been a big like into art, but something I never realized until my mom took up painting back 20 years ago, and she started showing me pictures of the great masters. I'm like, anybody can do that now, you know. If you're an artist and you paint and you can't do this, then you're nobody. But back in the day, if you were an artist and say you wanted to paint the Mona Lisa, the first thing you had to do was go out and acquire like some blue flowers and some red rocks and some, yep. You had to make your own paints. You couldn't go to the store and buy paint. You had to buy stuff that was the color you wanted or acquire it somehow, and then they would melt like animal fat and wax and stuff, and so they made their own paint. So that really was, when they painted those things, they were doing something really intense. And of course, they're all dead.
Yeah. And Chester Richardson says that when you mentioned about shaving your hair and everything, it says old-time pastors never cut their hair or shaved. I don't know if that's true though. In the movies, they always show them clean.
Yeah.
shaved.
What about that dude on the Little House on the Prairie? He always had short hair. What are you talking about?
Couple more hellos. Sunshine says, "So happy you're feeling better. Rachel, your tree is beautiful. One love, everybody." And Sleepy Girl 85 says, "Hey y'all," and good to see you, Henry. Rebecca Hammond said that the pic that sold is full of pagan sigils, and the new Mahdi of Saudi Arabia bought it.
Probably not even a Christian. That's just absolutely blasphemy. Actually, no, wait, that's right. The Muslim faith does believe in Jesus. They just don't believe in the same intensity that Christendom believes in Jesus. But they, if you go look at this painting, there's probably like ankhs floating around and angels and 7 planets behind them, and because that stuff is always in there somehow. Somehow these guys that were making their own paints were like really hip to all that weird Freemason stuff.
Maybe they were eating mushroom soup.
Could be. I've never tried it, so. But apparently you can see all kinds of stuff when you're eating mushroom soup.
Kitschkool over from England says, "Hi, guys." And then Key to Salvation says, "The temple spoken at the end of Ezekiel, is it past or is it yet to come?"
I'm not really sure. I'm not familiar with the verse. Ezekiel was mostly talking about the Jews being dragged off into Babylon, I think. And so, when they came back from Babylon, the Persian government funded a building project. I think the temple was still there. I think that they had to repair it, and then the wall around the city was destroyed, so they had to go and fix the wall. But all of that stuff, if you look at all those prophecies, I think they're about restoring the sea of glass around the earth. I think.
Uncle Nesta says about that picture that got somebody bought for $450 million. It says it was just simply a picture of Christ with his hand as a blessing, clearer than his face because it's moving towards you, and a clear orb in his left hand. Oh. What is that orb? They always like that orb, don't they?
I think the Pope carries one of those around with him. I have to go look at it again. It might be like an incense burner. Because our priest, you know, when I was Catholic, a priest would go. He had a like a chain he would hold in his hand, and it had, I guess it was 3 or 4 chains, and there was a ball hanging under it, and there would be smoke coming out of that. And he would walk through the church, swinging it back and forth. It had a neat smell, but I think it was like the same kind of smell, you know, when they gave the law to when Moses brought the law down, the second law, or somewhere in there. It included a lot of rules for how the priests were to carry out their duties, and there was like a formula for how to make incense. And part of the law was if anybody was caught making this formula for incense other than the Levites, that they were to be killed, because it was like top secret formula. I don't know if that's what that is, but you know, I'm just saying stuff to keep from having dead space.
No. I mean, these are what the people want to talk about. So Karen Bain says, sorry she's late. Hi, all and Henry. That's a nasty cough. Hot lemon juice ASAP. Grandma Patty makes a comment about her neighborhood Orthodox church around the corner has Christmas Mass in 2 weeks. I guess they have a different Christmas?
The Coptics, which are Egyptian, celebrate Christmas and Easter on a different day than Catholics. And the Catholics celebrate a different Christmas than the Eastern Orthodox, or Greek Orthodox. And I made a video about that one time. All their cycles, like for Christmas and Easter, it's like that's the equinox and the solstice, right? We're celebrating the solstice is what's happening tomorrow. And when the solar system functioned properly, the solstice would be universally recognized because the moon would be the farthest, or the sun would be the farthest north, or is that right? South, farthest south in the winter on the solstice, the day of the solstice. And the equinox is when the sun is directly over the equator, and that happens twice a year. But once God confused the solar system and put the planets in different positions and tilted the earth differently and put the moon in a different position, then suddenly no one knew when the equinox was and no one knew when the solstice was. So we have this tradition dating all the way back to the Babylonian captivity, 2,700 years ago, 700 years before Christ, where the solstice is still celebrated by all of Earth's religions in one form or another, and the equinoxes are still celebrated by all religions, one form or another, but on different days. So you have actually like a 30-day cycle of, and it's not just Christmas, because, you know, it's like, what do the Jews have? Hanukkah. And then for the solstice, or for the equinoxes, you have the spring festivals and the fertility rites and all that. That's all 30 days. But there's going to come a day when the Antichrist takes his throne and the solar system is restored and all of the earth will worship as one again, because that day will be, you know, you look up and you see the moon go blank. Well, that's the day of the equinox. There's no more question about what is the proper day.
Grandma Patty mentions that it's a Ukrainian church. Now, what's the distinction between the Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholics?
Different pope.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's name is, like, the Catholics always, it's the Papa, right? That's Italian, Papa. And Papa is, like, that's where we get our daddy, father. And it's also, it was the emperor, Roman emperor, the Caesars. And so the Caesars were the papas, or the fathers of the Roman Empire. And so that ended up being our pope today. The Greek Orthodox, when there was a separation, and there were several separations that took place, you know, the French, they actually had a pope in France and a pope in Constantinople. But they also had the Greek Orthodox, which is the same as the Ukrainian. And his name is the Patriarch of Constantinople. But it's just a pope, you know. Anytime you're worshiping some dude and his costume is fancier than everybody else's costume, you know, it's pope. Oral Roberts is pope. Pope of whatever, these TV preachers. Or not Oral Roberts. What's the one guy that's like the big preacher for America that they're always asking him, you know, how should we nuke the other side of the planet? And he's always like, anything to please God.
Boy, oh boy. I actually, I think I remember one distinction too between the Roman Catholics and the Orthodox is supposedly how they baptize. Like the Roman Catholics just like sprinkle a little water on the forehead, and the Orthodox people insist on full immersion kind of thing.
Yeah, like you can look at all the different rules. The rules between the Greek Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church is, yeah, it looks like a big deal. It's like as big of a deal as the difference between the Catholic Church and the Islam, but it's all the same thing. Sex rules, clothing rules, food rules. Nothing real substantial, just foolishness.
Grandma Patty makes a comment that the Russian President Putin is Orthodox. And then Uncle Nesta agrees with you. Different pope, different man made rules. And then Joe Sereno says that there were 5 patriarchs: Rome, Antioch, Alexandria, Jerusalem, and Athens, later moved to Constantinople.
Wow. Who was that?
Joe Sereno.
I got to keep him on my short list. Who to go to when I need ask questions about weird stuff that I ain't never heard before. But that's the Orthodox, right? The patriarchs. They have 5 patriarchs within the Orthodox religion.
That's what he's saying, yeah. And he listed out the names of, but he says Rome is one, so.
Yeah, well, probably that was part of it. I mean, it was like, we're not going to worship the Pope anymore because it's wrong to worship a man. We're going to worship the patriarch instead. Well, what's a patriarch? It's a father. The Bible's like, call no man on earth father. Okay, we'll call him a patriarch.
Chain of Hills mentions that she dropped her Bible in the bathtub, and so she's wondering if it's officially baptized now.
It might be officially garbage. I've had one sitting out in the tent the other day. I was out there. There was my emergency Bible still sitting in the tent. I hadn't zipped the tent up in years. And I went to open it, and the pages were stuck together. So it's like, okay, well, that was an emergency Bible. I got it for 99 cents at Goodwill. It's just a book. You can write in it. You can do whatever you want with it.
Rebecca Hammond says, if you reread the birth narrative, you will see that the shepherds watched their flock at night. While talking to a Messianic Jew, he says the only time shepherds do that is in the springtime.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because, I mean, I'm on the same... I always tell people I'm in 9A. That's my planting zone. Well, those U.S. Department of Agriculture planting zones are only good for the U.S. of America. It's not... They don't have them universally, but that line can be followed all the way around the planet. And a lot of the things that I chose to grow here that are not normal plants for this part of the country, I chose them because they grow in Israel. See, Israel, if it was part of the United States officially, it actually is, but if it was officially part of it, then they would be in USDA hardiness zone 8B, 9A. And so anyways, I can tell you this, is like, I sleep outdoors year-round, but I wouldn't be out laying on the ground with a bunch of sheep in the middle, because you can't even leave sheep out there. Sheep get sick if you don't house them in the winter. We used to have sheep. They're really susceptible to anything respiratory, So if they're out, they'll get a cold. Really, a cold can kill a sheep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of more in reference to that Christmas wasn't in the winter.
No, it couldn't be in the winter.
Jesus born.
Well, that thing we were talking about the other day during the podcast, and yes, you should. If you're not a normal podcast listener, you should listen this week. We talked a lot about the Melchizedek script, and in that, well, between myself and Ala Toledo, talked about some things we didn't talk about in the podcast, but Jesus he had to fulfill the role that humans wanted. Humans rejected Jesus as the Son of God, and so he had to be the Son of God and the Son of Man, just like the Nephilim. The Nephilim were the sons of the true God. The angels were their fathers, and the human women were their mothers, and so that's why Jesus had to be part of a virgin birth. He had to be the Son of God, the God, and the son of a woman. And all of these Nephilim, if you look at all of the stories about the Nephilim, there's always their inception, which took place during the equinox, and then their birth took place 9 months later during the solstice. That's why Easter is in the spring, and then Christmas is in the. So he fulfilled everything that they fulfilled, but it looks a lot like his birth was different in the timing. Like he would have been born on conceived on a solstice, and born on an equinox. And the reason I even say that is because it looks like his entry took place, like when he entered Jerusalem, he entered on the I can't think of the name, it's Feast of Trumpets, and then he left on the Passover, right? When he was killed on the Passover, so that's another 9-month cycle. So, I mean, it's just speculation. I shouldn't have even said anything, but yeah, Jesus likely was born in the spring.
Well, I always like that thing where it's like where Jesus was born on. Well, you could say Christmas, and then 9 months later, supposedly he dies. On Easter. So it's like that motif of 9-month birth.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, well, I'll say this: it's like it's enough mystery behind it that apparently it was not whether we celebrate it or not, it was never obligatory to celebrate his birth. At one time there was an obligation to celebrate the Passover and the Feast of Trumpets and all of that kind of stuff, but it's when Jesus did away with that, he didn't make up any new rules. He didn't say like a lot of people with the Last Supper, he says, "Do this in memory of me." Well, that was the Passover, so people take it that he was saying celebrate the Passover because I celebrate the Passover. That's not what he was saying. He was like, every time you eat a meal, think about me.
Chester Richardson says, what was the original Sabbath? I think that kind of goes along with this question about dating stuff.
I think probably there's a good strong tradition that the days of the week were somehow preserved, because we at one time people never thought about what day of the week it was. They could look up and see. It's like, okay, today is Sunday, there's the sun, and today's Monday, there's the moon day, that's what it was, and there's Thor, so this is Thor's day, and Thor being one of the planets, probably Mars or one of the Earth's moons. We probably had multiple moons at the time, and Sabbado is rest day. Well, that's in our language it's Saturn day, but at one time, Saturn was supposed to block the light of the sun once every 7 days. So if the days were preserved, if our Sabbado or Sabbath, Shabbat, Saturday, if these are the same days that were Saturdays and Sabbath days thousands of years ago, then Saturday would be the proper Sabbath. But at the same time, God said he was putting an end to the Sabbath, and when he did it in grand form. He moved Saturn out of its orbit so that people couldn't even see it anymore. It's just a little dot now. Back in the day, people said it blocked the light of the sun. That's pretty daggum close. It ain't that close now.
Uncle Nesta points out that you kind of got that one wrong. The original Sabbath was Ozzy Osbourne, Tommy Amoy, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward.
The original. I was actually, hey, look, this is how mindless I've been for the last 2 weeks. It's like the best thing I can muster is to watch. What did I watch today? I watched an entire 1 hour long concert of Spinal Tap. Not even a real band, but I mean, that's the kind of stuff. I got people sending me videos to watch about important stuff, and I just turn them on, and I'm like, this stuff is boring. I can't watch it. I'll watch
couple more hellos and well wishing. Rick Ballard says, "Howdy, everyone. Hope everyone is feeling better." Uncle Nesta says, "Henry, that cough of yours sounds like me and Mark here in the basement. Puff, puff. Feel better, brother." Chester Richardson says, "It hurts when you laugh. My best friend and I had that a few weeks ago." Grandma Patty mentions when we were talking about the Bible and everything that she can't write in the Bible or place anything on top of her Bible. Actually, my wife does that as well. So
Yeah, that's a regular. That's actually a scripture somewhere. Don't put anything on top of the Bible or above the Bible or above God's word. And so, if you take it literally, you know, and that's the way they do. If you look, most people's coffee tables, Bible sitting right there. Might be like an inch of dust on top of it, but you can tell ain't nothing ever said on top of that Bible.
Going back to timing of the birth of Jesus, Grandma Patty says Jesus was born while the parents went to pay their taxes. You would think tax paying time would be listed in history, but then Uncle Nesta corrects her, saying they were going for a census, actually, not to go pay their taxes.
Actually it's two different ways in different Bibles. Some say the census, some say taxes or tax for census. But I looked at the word one time, and it was like it's like for an official counting, which is a census. But it's one of those words that they do have to guess at a little bit. And I think it's census, probably census.
Synoptic Problem says in Revelation, is the breaking of the seven seals and the calamities that follow God's way of destroying civilization and bringing about the restoration of creation?
Well, there's seven seals in the vial, and there are also seven bowls of God's wrath, and there are seven trumpet blasts, right? And they're laid out as if it's 21 separate events. So there's seven of this, and then there's seven of that, and there's seven of that. But I think looking at it, they're all the same events. So the seven seals are the seven trumpet blasts. The seven trumpet blasts are the seven bowls of God's wrath, because there's like if you look at the first bowl and the first blast and the first trumpet or first seal, they sound like they go together. And if you look at what those things meant in the ancient past, there was this, the trumpet blasts were always associated with the lunar eclipses. And so if you look at, I did a video about this, I can't remember what it was called, but when a lunar eclipse happens, you've got the sun, right? And it's the earth passes between the sun and the moon. And this can only happen if our solar system was completely different than what it is now. But now we still have lunar eclipses. The shadow of the earth falls on the moon, and it makes a little black dot that moves across it. And I can't really represent that well just waving my hands around. But if you take a bowl, I don't have a bowl here, but like you take a bowl, this ain't a bowl. But as you're turning the bowl, you're going to see inside the bowl. And if the bowl is rounded, it's just going to look like a black dot passing across the face of the bowl. Well, it's the same thing with a trumpet blast. If you're blowing a trumpet, as you're raising trumpet to blow, you're going to be able to see down the bell or the horn of the trumpet. And the same thing with a seal, the removing of a seal. Like you have a piece of paper and you have these wax seals on there and you're removing them. It's like a black dot going across the paper. So they're all similar appearance. And if you were looking at the moon during a lunar eclipse, that it may look like the pouring out of a bowl, or it may look like the removing of a seal, or it may look like the trumpet blast. And also we know that every year at the same time, every village had to have a trumpeter, a person to blow what's called the shofar, so ram's horn. And if they noticed a little black spot starting to show up on the moon, they had to go out there. The village older men would go and look at it, and they said, "Oh, wait, that's the shadow of the earth getting ready to cross." They would have to blow that shofar, and everyone would have to come out and look at the eclipse. So we're not told. Uh-oh, that ain't right. Where's my phone at? Hey, man, I gotta call you back later. I'm doing my live stream right now. Okay, bye. Subscriber, why ain't he watching this? Anyway, there's one event that Paul spoke about that would be associated with the final trumpet blast. And if this is 7 cycles, right, 7 trumpet blasts, then on the 7th trumpet blast, said that the Lord would appear in the clouds, we would enter into the clouds, and we would meet the Lord with the resurrected dead. So that's the very last event. The very first event would happen before we met Jesus. So if these cycles are 6-month cycles and 7 of them, then it's 3.5 years. So we've got a 3.5 year cycle where the Antichrist will make his appearance. Apparently they're going to put up another satanic temple there on the Temple Mount, which the current world ruler is attempting to initiate right now with his, you know, what he's doing seems insane. You know, why in the world would you invade a country and then after a short time put up a, you know, make the capital of your enemies in that country? But anyways, maybe that's leading up to it. I don't know. But
Rick,
oh, I'm sorry.
well, one quick question. Rick Ballard wants to know, when you were describing everybody coming out to look at the black dot, why would everybody have to do it?
It was just part of that law. You know, God gave them a simple law. Said, look, don't kill, don't steal, don't have sex with demons, have a nice life. And they said, yeah, that sounds good to us. And so Moses went up on the top of the mountain, and the magic rock appeared, and then the magic rock got magic stuff carved in it without Moses touching it. Moses comes down, and these people are worshiping a toy animal. And so Moses broke the 10 commandments given to him by God, and God said, well, go back up on the mountain, but this time bring your own rocks and make your own laws. And so that was just included. That was one of those silly, arbitrary, seemingly nonsensical rules that Moses brought down with him the second time around. The cool thing about it, even though this stuff is like nonsensical or seemingly nonsensical, it all preserves these things that are like pre-enactments of events that would take place in the future and reenactments of events that had already taken place in the past. Like a lot of the laws reveal things to us about what happened between Cain and Abel, you know, after the Garden of Eden incident. And then, of course, there's a lot of things that are in the law like this that reveal to us what's going to happen in the last days. We wouldn't know what that trumpet blast was all about, except for that the law very carefully recorded the timing of the law. The timing of the law was it was to happen on the first day of the 7th month. You see, lunar eclipses happen twice a year, but they don't happen over the same landmass. You know, they happen in different spots. Every 6 months there's one somewhere. And in fact, now it's not even 6 months because our moon and our earth and our sun do not function anything like they used to. But if you look at things mathematically and you're looking for perfection, then the moon, as the earth is tilting, you know, and adjusting for the summer, winter, spring, and the fall, then you're going to have a point where if the moon is going around the same spot on the earth, say the moon is going around the equator, then what's going to happen is you would have a perfect black dot over the eastern hemisphere in the exact same space, exact same timing every year in the fall, but then you would also have a perfect black dot going across the earth in the western hemisphere in the spring. Because on the other side of the earth, you wouldn't be having that. You would have 2 blood moons, one night after the other, and then in the middle of that, they would be having the eclipse on the other side of the planet. And, you know, if you look at all the laws that were given to the Jews, none of them make any sense. But if you look at them and what they recorded, then they make a lot of sense.
Well, Matt C. says the law was you had to have witnessed because they operated on the lunar calendar. So they took it very seriously, and when a person claimed that they saw a sliver of the moon coming into sight.
For someone to, you know, I've heard this all my life, that the Jews used the lunar calendar, and the reason we say that is because the Jews use the lunar calendar today. And if you look at how they come up with their months, because you've got, if you look at in the ancient past, like from before the flood, during the flood, all the way up to the Babylonian captivity, the months were called the first month, the second month, the third month, all the way up to the 12th month. They had nothing else. They just had those numbers. But then after they returned from Babylon, then they had 13 months, because you've got these 12, and then you've got this extra little, like, piece of a month that would go in there to fill in the gaps. And the months were not called first, second, third anymore. They were called, like, the month of Tammuz. You know, they're all of the months that the Jews celebrate today are on satanic gods, deities. You know, the Easter is Nisan 14. That's the Jewish calendar. And Nisan is just another satanic deity. You know, because they went from having those 12 predictable months with 30 days, 30-day months, 360-day years, to a calendar where we got a 365 and whatever days solar year, and then our months are like, what are they, 28 and a half or 29 and a half day months. And so at one time there was no, it's called a lunar calendar now because when the Jews came back from Babylon, they were all Babylonians. That's why they worshipped at the synagogue. You know, synagogue is a Babylonian temple. And it's a Babylonian word. It's not even a Hebrew word. But it wasn't because God instructed them on how to have a leap year calendar. It's because when God destroyed the Jewish calendar, they made up their own Babylonian calendar. You know, it's demonic. The original 360-day year with 12 30-day months was the way God created the universe. He didn't create it to be like this. He simply confused the calendar to destroy the Jewish system of worship. Well, not really the Jewish system of worship. This was an earth-wide thing. Like I said earlier, you know, every religion on earth that celebrates the equinoxes and the solstices, and by moving all the planets out of position and moving the sun and the earth and the moon relative to one another, God completely destroyed mankind's ability to continue performing these satanic rituals.
Well, since we're on the subject, Great Bay asks, where did the Gregorian calendar come from? And then Uncle Nestor chimes in, Gregory, obviously. Laugh out loud.
You know, it's kind of weird. If you look at historically, like in the Bible, there's an obvious like shift from empire to empire. So initially, the Egyptian Empire was kind of like the world power when the Jews were first formed up, or the Israelites. After that, there was like a lot of wars going on, and eventually Assyria ascended to the top of the pile, and then Phoenicia and Greece, then Rome, and England, and the United States. But you can look back at these when these things were repositioning, and another cough drop.
Well, you're getting your cough drop. Just a couple more hellos. George or Joe Sereno, who we talked about previously. He says, it's been a while here since I've been on here. This Rastafari channel.
Oh yeah,
Henry
that's Rastafari.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so he said,
that's Erie.
Yeah, he says, thank God I didn't miss this live stream. One love and job bless you. Then Super U68 says, sorry I'm late. Hope all, hello all, and hope you're feeling better, Henry.
Yeah, well, I just remember we were talking about something, weren't we?
The Gregorian calendar, I guess.
Oh, the Gregorian calendar, yeah. Well, it seems to me, now, if you look historically, like we know that there's going to be an Antichrist. That's Satan. Satan is, you know, Christ is Christ, Satan is the Antichrist. But both Christ and Satan making multiple appearances over time, it seems to me that there have been some historical figures that were obviously demon-possessed, and they were so demon-possessed that they may not have just been possessed by a typical demon. They maybe were possessed by Satan. And I really believe that Pope Gregory the 13th was demon-possessed. And I also believe that King James the 13th was demon possessed because he changed his name to King James I. He's the one that produced the Bible. See, and Pope Gregory was producing Bibles, and it seems like that's just one of those things that these really, really bad people always do is they kidnap the Bible and they put it in the language of the empire, and they force everyone to learn the language of the empire, and you get a lot of this creepy stuff coming into the Bible. But Gregory the 13th, when he made the Gregorian calendar, he based it on 400-year cycles, which is insane. You know, here's the reason for that. When the earth had a 360-day year, human beings all around the planet left calendars that had 360-day years. So it was the Egyptian calendar, the Babylonian calendar, the Jewish calendar, the Aztec calendar, the Incan calendar. And every one of those calendars, and including the Jewish calendar, including the Bible, said that the calendar, a 360-day calendar, was based on a 400-year cycle. And in fact, when Abraham went into the Promised Land and he stopped and he talked to God, God told him, says, you're going to have so many offspring, it's going to be like the sands of the sea, but they will be enslaved for 400 years. But if you go look at that in original Hebrew, that's not what he told him. He told him, you're going to be enslaved to the 400 years, the 400-year cycle. And if you go back, even the Aztecs and the Incans, they had what's called a Baktun. A Baktun was a cycle of 400 years. And if you look at all of these end-of-the-world prophecies from around the world, Native Americans, it doesn't matter, Babylonian, Egyptian, they all talk about the number of Baktuns because it's a 6,000-year cycle, which would be 15 Baktuns. So that's why the Aztec calendar was such a big deal a while back, because people said, well, the 15th Baktun is here. What they're not taking into consideration is that the year is not here. If you count by days with a 360-day calendar, yeah, that happened a while back. But if you count the actual years, the 400-year cycles, then we're like, what did I say before, like 2036 or 2035 is going to be the 15th Baktun. So when that happens, that's, all bets are off. But that's why, the Gregorian calendar is a 400-year cycle calendar. In other words, Monday, May the 12th, will only happen once in 400 years. Well, not exactly that way, but I mean the entire year will cycle, so that every single day in the year falls on the exact same day of the week. That doesn't happen until the 400-year cycle is completed. And there's no way that some guy looking into the sky could know that the earth had, and we still have a 400-year solstice cycle. In other words, when I was talking before about the solstices and the equinoxes, the earth, as it's spinning and circling the sun, and the moon is circling the earth, the sun actually is directly over a very precise point on the earth. And scientists at NASA know where this point is, and how they know, I don't know. But that cycle is like directly over the equator, and then a year later it's over the equator again, but it's a little bit off. And then a year later it's over the equator again, just a little bit off from the last year. And what happens at the end of 400 years, that the sun will appear directly over that same spot. There's no way for simple humans like you and I look into the sky and tell that the earth has a 400-year solstice cycle, but it's a recognized fact that was discovered only recently, like in 1910 or something. And yet here's Pope Gregory the 13th, back around the time of King James I of England, and he's discovered this? Physically impossible. That's demon possession. There's only way that anybody could know that we had a 400-year cycle is they learned it from the demons. And so, yeah, I think Pope Gregory the 13th was like Satan in the flesh. And then when the Roman Empire fell to the English Empire, the British Empire, Satan moved into the body of King James I, guy that wrote the Bible.
Couple more hellos. S. Coulter says, my first live chat with Sustenance and Covering. How are you feeling, Henry? Sorry I'm late. And then Uncle Nesta makes a comment that that one guy that did the video review of your hair, or of your dreadlocks, just did a review of Uncle Nesta's hair as well.
Oh, yeah, we got to see that.
Yeah. Next comment comes from a couple people, actually. A Chain of Hills makes a comment, and then there's a follow-up with Kitchcool. Chain of Hills says, the world is getting more and more satanic every day. Even commercials are pointing towards Satan, like the recent Taco Bell commercial with their Illuminati motif. I don't know if you saw that, did you?
No, I don't
yeah,
TV.
It's something. It's just their commercials, and they talking about the dollar bill and the pyramid, and you fold the dollar bill in a certain way, and it says taco or something. But then Kitchcool says the question I want to ask is: after Jehovah has destroyed this world, do you think he'll leave any remnant of man like he did in the past? And he hopes you're feeling better, mate.
Yeah, weren't we supposed to already? I can't remember. He gave me this question. We were supposed to bring it up even if he wasn't here, but I don't have it in any of my notes, so I must have forgot to write it down. But yeah, I'll have to go through and see what happened to that note. I wonder about that myself because there are verses in the Bible that say that the death will be no more and suffering will be no more. The former things have passed away. And so there's a lot of other verses that talk about a time when human beings will never even think about the suffering that they did in this life. It would be very difficult to walk past a 400-foot tall pyramid and say, wait a minute, I'm having a memory here of something that ain't very pleasant. So I think that it's all going to be gone, but at the same time, it's really not scriptural. I don't know. Because here's a part of the question, as he originally gave it to me, is that the flood washed the earth clean. And yet, after the flood, human beings who happened to walk into Egypt found this pyramid there. And that's for me. I don't think that the pyramids were built after the flood. I believe they're one of the few things that were built before the flood and survived the flood. And the reason for that is because I think in Daniel it talks about the stone being cast down at the feet of the image and destroying all the parts of the image. Well, that stone is said to be cut out of the mountain of Jehovah. Well, if you look at it, it's hard to see, but it seems like it's saying the stone was cut out of the mountain of cut stones. That's not a mountain. It's not the same word as mountain. A mountain of cut stones could only be a pyramid. And it says that this one stone is removed from the mountain and cast at the feet of the image. I think that was a capstone because after the flood, quite a few historians who ventured into Egypt came back and they left written records, and every one of them noted that they had seen pyramids all over Egypt, but the main pyramid, the big one, had no capstone. So it makes me believe that part of the flood, when Noah was building the ark, that as things started to happen, God actually physically removed the stone from the pyramid and cast it down. And that was his way of letting civilization know that their time was up.
Marshmallow makes a comment about that Taco Bell commercial. It's not the Illuminati, it's the Bellamonte, like Illuminati, but with Bell, Taco Bell, Bellamati, something like that.
Hey, look, you know some Spanish, don't you, Ala Toledo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what's yo quiero?
Oh, yeah, Taco Bell. Oh, boy. Well, let's see. Synaptic Problem asks a question about Melchizedek. I'm not sure if you want to talk about that, but maybe we can just direct him to the podcast.
Yeah, go to the podcast. Well, actually, what's the question? Did he go into the details that I said I wasn't ready to share?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, he says the book of Hebrews says that Melchizedek is without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days or end of life, but made like the Son of God. So his question is could it be that Melchizedek is a theophany of God or Christ and not a human being at all? Which I think
I read that. Now here's the problem with that. I'm willing to give a little bit of hints because that's a big hint as to who Melchizedek is, and not only that, but that's a big hint about who Jesus is. Because everybody's wondering who Melchizedek is finding out who Melchizedek is like a teeny tiny little bit of information that leads us to find out who Jesus is. This is going to be the incredible stuff. But if you look those words up, without mother, without father, it's not like without mother and without father, those Greek words. There's a Greek word like pater noster is like the Latin, but it's pater is a Greek word, means father, and mater, I think, is mother. Those words aren't there. These are like official legalism words. And the two words are not two individual words, it's just like one word. And so what it's basically saying is his mother does not deserve the right to call herself a mother, and the father has no legal rights to pass on to the son. So it's not like he was without a father and without a mother, but his mother and his father would not lead to his gaining any kind of inheritance. Because see, it was talking about the difference between Jesus' priesthood and the priesthood of the Levites, right? Because the Levites got their priesthood because they were Levites. Their mothers and fathers were from the tribe of Levi. And that led to them having that right. But Jesus' mother and father, it goes into the fact that Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, and says, has any priest ever come from the tribe of Judah? You know, that's the tribe of kings. And so hey, look, this is going places. If I ever get feeling, because I have been trying my best to read what I've gotten written so far, just so I could know where to start writing again. And this stuff is just I cannot concentrate right now. I'm kind of surprised I'm able to even talk about it, because I really am in kind of a fog. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another hint. So now that you know that those words are not without father and without mother, and what it really means, that you can go on to figuring out the next question you want to ask.
Next question is from D. Vinson. In order to restore creation, won't the earth be terraformed, basically destroying everything man-made and returning all things to their original form?
Well, Usamos doesn't think so, because he said, he said he would like to come see my forest one time, because he said that he feels like my forest may be the beginning of the restoration of the earth. And I said, man, these trees are so sick and crooked. If God doesn't destroy them and put in some new ones, it's going to be bad. Because I think, just like he says, that terraforming is like a Star Trek thing, or Stargate. Where aliens build a big machine and it comes and what was that one? Remember the one with Star Trek where Kirk has a son, and they have this thing called the Genesis device, and it's like a nuclear bomb, and they set it off on a planet, and the whole planet turns into a forest. Dinosaurs and everything come back. Okay, I wandered from the subject a bit.
No, you were doing it. So I guess you were explaining that you have you have a very bad green thumb, and you don't want God to use your forest as a glue.
It looks so bad. There's so many of my trees are not only are they leaning, but the roots are like sticking out of the ground like that, and even it's a sick forest. It looks beautiful because it's the most beautiful piece of forest for 100 miles in any direction, but that's only because the other 100 miles has been nuked, by factories and malls and roads and hurricanes.
Well, I guess that's it for this evening. You want to go ahead and take us out? Or you want to say something like sing a Christmas carol and then take us out, maybe?
Jingle bells, jingle bells. Burl Ives was really good at that stuff. Anyways, as always, I'm glad that I was able to get through this and that y'all were able to tolerate me, and I hope nobody's worried about me. I did go to the doctor, and I got some drugs, and my body's better. I'm not having a temperature or anything now, but I still feel terrible. I've been sleeping like 20 hours a day, and I can't break out of that for some reason. But if I can make it through today, I'm pretty sure I'll make it through next week, and Hopefully you'll be here. And as always, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me. I ain't gonna have a smooth takeout of this one because I gotta figure out how to turn all this stuff off.